driving my brand new old 1985 Chevy pickup this morning. It's a 3/4 ton. It's got a 4.1 liter inline 6 engine. Really cool old engine. Really cool old truck. Really simple, sturdy, everything you need. The perfect truck for when crap hits the fan. A nice truck to have now. Not a lot to it. So, I'm hauling a cow this morning. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So the subject I wanted to bring up was about the Christianization of the Scandinavians. So I hear it said all the time in memes or on Twitter or wherever with Christian people, the Chad-faced men with crosses around their necks on these big farms, and how that's sort of like the European ideal, the trad ideal. You see accounts like Trad West, which are really kind of cringe, posting those all the time, that to be, a based church-going Christian is on a farm is like the trad ideal. That's what's going to save the West. But it's really pretty ignorant of how our ancestors became Christians as a whole. It's really pretty ignorant of the factors that Christianity represents. And what I'm going to talk about is exactly why that is. So, when you look at how Scandinavia, for instance, was Christianized in the Viking Age, it was not some situation where it's untruthful to say that Christians were all that Scandinavians were all bribed and threatened and tortured into becoming Christians. And it's also a lot more untrue to say that Scandinavians were that they chose Christianity because it was the most based and trad religion, that they chose to give up their traditional religion because Christianity was a lot more trad. It just made a lot more sense. And that's not true at all. The first part, yes, true somewhat, but the second part, not true at all. So the reality that's often left out, I don't really hear anyone talking about the Scandinavians becoming Christian, is that the Scandinavian population in the Viking Age was huge. It was bristling over the edges. And over the course of that, of course, you have settlers coming all out. They went into the Danelaw in England. They were going to Dublin in Ireland, and the Scottish Isles, and Normandy, and all over the place. And when they conquered those foreign Christian lands and formed their own kingdoms, those kingdoms were based on cities. If you want to look at the British Isles, the Norse heartland of the British Isles, the power center, the population center of Scandinavians was York and Dublin. They were huge, huge cities. They had countless thousands of inhabitants. And essentially what happened is all of these, based in trad, strong, brave, noble, pagan Vikings came, conquered those cities, settled in them, and then they had children, either with Scandinavian wives or with British wives that they'd captured. And these children were not born in their ancestral, rural, harsh, and beautiful homeland. They were born in the middle of a city, which in a lot of ways was kind of like a cesspool. They had no connection to their ancestral faith. They were not really pagans. They were pagan in name only, essentially. And the bigger these cities got, the less quality the people became, the more dishonorable, the more degenerate, the more diseases broke out. We hear about dysentery all the time happening in the Viking Age in York and Dublin. And it was essentially became the perfect breeding ground of Christianity, because Christianity appealed to city people. It appealed to people who had really no connection to their ancestral faith at all, to their own spirituality. So Christianity was convenient, and so they were like, okay, yeah, I guess if it's convenient, and if it offers forgiveness for all the degenerate things I've done, I guess I'll become a Christian. And so a lot of it was willing, more or less, because the people who converted were retarded city people. And when you look at the first places in the Scandinavian world to all be converted, it was the biggest population centers. It was the port, the biggest trading merchant cities, funny enough. It was York, Dublin, Birka in Sweden, Hedeby in Denmark, the ports in the Oslo Fjord in Norway. Those were all the places those were really essentially the only places in the Scandinavian world that were really converted at all. Just those few big cities. Just the city people. And because the biggest population centers were the most powerful regions, they held the most sway over who became king or not. They elected kings who were a lot lower quality, who happily became Christians. And from these big population centers, from these cities, they could forcibly convert through whatever means necessary the trad rural population of native Scandinavians. So I hope that enlightened some of you.